Today we're talking about why an advanced INFJ always protects their self-image. If you would have asked me 10 years ago if I cared about self-image or how I feel about myself when I'm surrounded by others, I would have said, I don't need to protect that. Like, I know who I am. I'm totally fine. I see how people are uncertain about themselves and they have like all of these stories they're telling themselves, and I'm actually there seeing through them. I'm there trying to help them, and I'm okay making myself small in order to, not rub them the wrong way, because I felt, okay, they're suffering. They just can't make it happen what seems so easy to me, which is to be okay with myself. I see who they are. They're totally fine. Why isn't that enough? And I was willing to adapt to that. And this kind of behavior I see in INFJs all the time. I see this as like this default state of, I'm totally fine. Of course I love myself. So I'm also okay putting myself a little bit in the background because I see that the other person that I'm dealing with has a hard time if I shine through, right? I don't have a problem with that. I don't need to protect my self-image. Well, it turns out we do. And today we're going to talk about why we actually have to protect our self-image and how this is different than pretending to be something that we're not. Before we get started, remember Bootcamp is launching tomorrow, August 20th. We're also going to have a free masterclass here on YouTube. It's a live stream that you can access for free. So make sure you sign up for the waiting list. You get access to the early bird price of the Bootcamp. You get notified when the masterclass goes live. All of those goodies you find in the links in the description. We as INFJs are masters at hollowing ourselves out. This is a skill. And I always want to make sure that we all distinguish between a skill and who we are. Just because we're good at something, that does not mean that we have to do it all the time and that we have to do it even in situations where it's not healthy for us. This is the thing about like being an empath. We very often think, okay, I'm an empath, which means in every kind of situation that I put myself in or I get put in, I feel everybody else's emotions. I cannot run away from it. I feel responsible for helping others because I see how they're suffering and there's nobody else there to help them. I know that feeling. I've experienced this feeling more than once. I've experienced it like most of my life before I started this transformational journey for myself. And I see it with the INFJs that I work with all the time. This is, a common thread. So is it something that you have to live with? I can guarantee you it's not, although it feels like it. And I'm telling you this out of a position of having been somebody who was convinced there's no way to turn this like empath thing off. There's no way I could stop, understanding others so well and getting pulled into their life. Like, there was no way I thought this was possible. In my early 20s, for example, I knew absolutely everything about my best friend. I knew her emotional state at any time because I was so invested in that. And we INFJs tend to do that. But we have to look at it from a perspective of, why are we doing this? We're not just doing this out of altruistic reasons. We're doing this because it's easier to focus on somebody else and what they're going through than to actually look at our own emotions, because those emotions are painful. There are things that we have, pushed down in order not to feel. And so you might say, okay, I get that, but what does that have to do with self-image? Well, the thing is this: in order to actually understand others to such an extent, we have to hollow ourselves out. And hollowing ourselves out means that we're actually not protecting our self-image. To be fair, we as INFJs, we don't need to protect our self-image to such an extent as other types might have to. They have to hold on to their sense of self very firmly because otherwise they would just lose themselves. Like, it takes a lot for an INFJ to really lose themselves. That's why we're able to hollow ourselves out. We still have an impression of, okay, this is who I am, although I'm looking at somebody else's life as an outsider. I don't need to feel that sense of self all the time. But here's the thing, and this goes for all types. Those kind of personal areas that we're very good at, that we're particularly skilled at, we overestimate them all the time. You see this with INFPs who overestimate how much emotion they can actually, go through and experience. If you look at an INFP, I'm every time like really impressed how much emotion they can, digest, as in, have like those really, really high highs and those lows and totally feel fine about it. And if I would allow myself to join that roller coaster, I couldn't experience it to such an extent. It just isn't something that I would be capable of. I actually, put those boundaries up because it would just be too much for me. Same thing goes with ENFJs. So the most emotions I've experienced in my life is when I got attached to an ENFJ, and I was so focused on how they experience everything. And I tried to go on that roller coaster and experience everything they're going through, with them, because it made me feel alive. It really heightened those emotions that I was feeling. But I also recognized, no, this is too much for me. This is going way overboard. And so I stopped myself. The ENFJ didn't stop themselves, and they recognized that they overextended themselves, that they experienced those emotions to an extent that just wasn't healthy for them. For us, it is all about this hollowing ourselves out part. It is all about introverted intuition. We think we can handle it. We think we can lose ourselves to such a big extent and we're going to be fine. But we're not going to be fine. If you forget who you are in order to attach yourself to somebody else, in order to experience life from their perspective, you're going to take on their understanding of life and their way of thinking in an extent that will make you miserable because it's not tailored to you. You're not supposed to feel emotions to such an extent as an ENFJ. You're not supposed to, live in those heightened anxieties and those adrenaline rushes as an ESTP can. You are supposed to understand yourself and hold on to that. And it doesn't have to get to a place where you really lose yourself completely. Have a reality break like I had in order to get that concept. It's not necessary. It's good enough to say, let me just try it out. I'm good at hollowing myself out, and it's okay to know that this is a skill that I can use deliberately when I see it fit. I deliberately can empathize with somebody because I'm consciously choosing to do so. It's not something I'm doing on default. And even though it might feel like I don't have another choice, trust me, you do. It really just takes a little bit of practice. It's all about, okay, somebody of your friends is experiencing another meltdown and you can't really do anything about it. You're just enabling them to tell yourself, okay, my mind goes somewhere else. Every single time my mind wanders into what they're thinking, how they're experiencing something, how I might have hurt them, and how bad this whole interaction is from their perspective, you have something that will keep your mind off it. So every single time this happens, you put on a song that gets you into a whole different mood, right? And the more you do this, the easier it will be to detach yourself from all of this. And you will recognize it is a choice. It's not something that happens automatically. So once you know that it's a choice, it's not something that you have to do, then we can actually talk about why it's so much better to hold on to this concept of this is who I am. It is something that you choose, because I can choose to be somebody who's all about, oh, I'm a martyr. I, allow others to do whatever they want. I don't want to be a hindrance into them creating the life that they want. Or you can decide, no matter how much I want to help others, I make sure I'm the leading character of my movie. No matter what, I'm going to fight for myself first. And only when I know that I'm doing this am I helping somebody. So for example, that meant for me that I'm not helping anybody at all ever again if that means that I have to show up as somebody who doesn't love themselves, as somebody who pretends to be weaker than I am in order not to rub people the wrong way. How often are you walking on eggshells? How often are you worried that somebody might think that you're being mean or selfish or self-centered? Those are all indications that you're not holding on to the self-image that's going to make you feel good. The self-image that's going to make you feel good is, I'm never walking on eggshells. I love myself, so I make sure that I create harmony for myself. I make sure that my thoughts are based on me feeling good. And I'm going to hold on to that. I'm going to practice this And the more I do this, the easier it will be for me to just bypass if others, feel bad about me choosing myself. And of course, this will happen. Of course, it will be more comfortable for others if you made things happen in a way that made them feel good. But at what price? You are a human being, like everybody else. And you also have the right, like everybody else, to make sure that you're good, that you're comfortable, that you're not walking on eggshells, that you're not pretending to be weaker than you are, or be more forthcoming than you need to in order not to disrupt like a perceived harmony. It's not a harmony. It's just something that makes other people good. And you are living in this harmony in order to not rock the boat. You might feel that you want to create just calmness and you don't want to make somebody feel uncomfortable, but you also don't want to make yourself feel uncomfortable. But every single time you're walking on eggshells, every single time you're pretending to be somebody that you're not, every single time you're hollowing yourself out, you are causing disharmony in your system. That's it. You're causing pain to yourself every single time. And you're also teaching your mind that the normal state of yours is to care what others think, to care about what others feel, but to disregard what you feel, to disregard what you like, to disregard what you think. Your mind will learn that. And of course, when you get to that state, it's totally difficult to ever imagine that you can put yourself first, that you're not all about like what others are feeling and like what is bad for them and so on. You cannot even see that there's another possibility. I know I couldn't. So how do we get out of this? Well, we continuously make a different choice. We continuously say, what would a person do who actually cared about how they felt? And you do this as often as you possibly can until this becomes your new normal. In order to make this happen, we have to create a self-image that we hold on to no matter what. Because in the beginning, it feels like I'm putting on a role. I'm putting on a costume. It's not who I am. It's not my identity. But now that I've gone through this and now that I've, assisted so many INFJs in that process, I know that this is something that will become your new identity. It will become something that you feel is your true self. And the only way to get there is to hold on to that self-image of how you want to feel about yourself, even if feelings come up that contradict that. This is one of the things we talk about in bootcamp when it comes to vocation, that we have to understand, how do we want to be seen by others? We want to be seen by others the way we want to see ourselves, what makes us feel good. And you can do this with the help of archetypes. You can do this once you look at movie roles that inspire you. To create the self-image of that's how I want to feel. For me, it was all about being a warrior and also about being a priestess. There was like something in the combination of movie roles and archetypes that helped me to define how I felt best about myself. And I held on to that. And I said, no matter who comes into my life, no matter who I interact with, this is how I want to feel. And I'm going to exude that at every moment that I possibly can. And if somebody doesn't feel good about themselves being around that kind of energy, then it's on them to leave. I'm not going to make that decision for them. And I'm also not going to say, oh, I already know this is not going to make them feel good, so I'm hiding that part of myself. A lot of us learn this once we've actually gone through a couple of those situations. That's why I'm talking about an advanced INFJ, somebody who already understood that this is the only way to go, that everything else will just cause us pain and will probably enable others to continue on their unhealthy path as well. So make sure that you protect your self-image. Don't think I'm an INFJ, I don't need this, pretending to be something that I'm not kind of thing. You're just holding on to the concept of how you want to feel about yourself. And you're going to hold on to this until it becomes your second nature. And once you do this, everything else around you, people, situations, they adapt to that. It's the best feeling ever. If you want to learn in detail how to do this, then join this bootcamp round. We start August 27th. It's launching tomorrow, August 20th. And we're going to have a free masterclass here on YouTube if you still have some questions on how bootcamp works. All the information you find in the links in the description. And if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then watch the video when an INFJ stops trying to make others understand. This is what happens.